You got the touch. You got the power. Yeah!
Hello and welcome to But I Digress, the show where sometimes my mouth goes faster than my brain. I am your host, Nathan, call me Nate Marchand. It's been a while, hasn't it? Too long, in fact. I was going to review Avengers Age of Ultron a few months ago, but that didn't go as planned because of, well, technology problems. Come on! What? Blue screen of death? I am Ultron. Oh, you mother trucker!
Language.
Yeah, I said a euphemism.
Yeah, just sort of slipped out. Sorry.
Anyway, I'll probably review that film once it hits DVD and Blu-ray, though you can read my text review of it for Examiner.com, which I'll include a link to in this video's description. Regardless, today's video will be on...
I've been waiting for you.
Hey T-800, long time no see.
I told you I'd be back.
Actually, I don't think you did. Regardless, it's nice to see you again, but what brings you back to my neck of the woods? I hope it's not to protect me from another Terminator sent back to kill me for reviewing a Schwarzenegger movie. Speaking of which, I thought you went to Hollywood to be Arnold's stunt double.
I did, but I looked too young to be him. So I worked at a wax figure museum as a living sculpture until he needed someone to play his younger self in Terminator Genisys.
Oh yeah, that movie. The first two are classics and rank among my favorite films, but this new one just looks like it'll be, I don't know, mediocre at best. I thought about reviewing it, but...
Do not bother. My current mission is to review it on your show, so you do not have to.
Okay. The floor is yours. But why are you doing this?
I am here to protect you. Remember?
Can't be that bad. But go ahead and tell us all about it.
What the in this movie?
Good thing that censorship program my future self installed in him still works.
What did they do to my canon? And I don't mean canon as in... I mean, what did they do to my continuity? Alas, poor Yorick. I knew these films well. Back when James Cameron was writing and directing them. Talk to the hand. This movie sucks! See this? My CPU is a neural net processor, a learning computer, and even I couldn't figure out what was going on in this movie. Hasta la vista, franchise.
Hold on! I can't believe this. I'm gonna have to see the movie for myself. You sound too much like a troll.
You will regret it.
Hey, no fate but what we make, remember?
I warned you. Now I will continue with my...
I'm a fanboy. I can't be bargained with. I can't be reasoned with. I don't feel pity or remorse or fear. And I absolutely will not stop ever until I review this movie. And I thought I had a cheesy grin. Where do I even begin? I mean, okay. Normally, when I do a movie review, I start off by giving this warning.
Spoilers.
But honestly, I don't even care at this point whether there are spoilers or not. I don't care if you keep watching. I kind of want you to. I would rather you get the spoilers so you know to avoid this movie. Because it's honestly one of the this is the angriest I have been at a movie since I saw G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra. Alright? The angriest I've been at a movie I've seen in a movie theater since G.I. Joe: Rise of Cobra, and I hated that movie. Seriously, as a fan, this movie is an insult. I mean, it really is. Seriously. In fact, to be honest, that meme that I just used seems terribly appropriate because Matt Smith, yes, the 11th Doctor himself is in this movie. They credit him as Matthew Smith for whatever reason, but whatever. And it's, you know, why not? Let's put the Doctor in this. Let's put the Doctor in this because, well, I think a better title for this movie would have been Terminator 5 Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey. I mean, seriously. Stephen Moffat probably watched this movie and thought, what the bleep is going on? Because that's how ridiculous this is. Okay, let me start at the beginning, alright? First off, I just want to say that this movie, I mean, it has a lot of problems, but it has three major ones. The first of which being that it doesn't make any sense, alright? Remember how I said that Matt Smith is in this? They didn't specify what his role was going to be. Well, guess what he is? He's the avatar for Skynet. And it's all his fault that all of these stupid time travel shenanigans get set in motion. I wonder if the filmmakers did that on purpose. Huh? They're like, oh, here's a script. We're going to have Skynet completely screw everything up and start all of these insane alternate timeline shenanigans. So why don't we cast Matt Smith? Let's have the Doctor do it. Because then everyone can blame the Doctor. Because it's always the Doctor's fault when it comes to screwed up timelines. As a Whovian, I feel a little bit insulted. Anyway, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. The previous Terminator movies have dabbled in alternate timelines before, but not to the extent that this one does. And anyone who thinks about this movie's plot, after more than 10 seconds, will start to realize that it's completely unraveling. It's so tangled up, and then it takes all these lines, and they all get all tangled up, and then it takes some scissors and it starts cutting some of it, and it doesn't make any sense. All right, here, try to figure this one out. When the movie starts, it's the original timeline that's set in the first two movies, where Skynet rose in 1997, which just seems a little bit contradictory because Terminator 3, even though it was mediocre at best, said that Judgment Day actually happened in like 2002, 2003, but whatever. And then, so it ends with Skynet being defeated, and then Skynet sending the first Terminator back in time and human guys, and then John Connor finding Kyle Reese and sending him back in time, and then right as he sends him back in time, the Matt Smith Skynet literally stabs John Connor in the back. Something crazy starts to happen, but Kyle Reese gets sent back in time anyway. And then it starts in 1984, and starts following the events of the original movie pretty closely, with the original Terminator arriving and trying to get some clothes from the punks and stuff like that. And then suddenly old Arnold Schwarzenegger shows up and starts shooting at him and starts beating him up, and it turns out he was a Terminator sent back to protect, I should say, Sarah Connor in like 1972 from an alternate timeline. But if the alternate timeline already existed, why does this one still going on then? And how did anyone in the future from this alternate timeline know to send the Terminator back? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And then a T-1000 shows up and starts going after people, goes after Kyle Reese, which completely disrupts everything that was going on in the original timeline. And then you find out that Sarah Connor's already gotten into T2 mode because she was trained by the other Terminator starting in the 70s. And then you find out that those two had managed to salvage parts together, make their own time machine, which makes no freaking sense. I don't know how you could do that. And then they said, we're going to go to 1997, make sure Skynet never happens. And then somehow through all of the craziness that's going on, all of the warping of the time-space continuum and all that, Kyle Reese has these inklings that Skynet actually rises in 2017, convinces them to go to that, which is technically an alternate timeline. And then when they get there, they're found by the now it's over 9,000 Terminator version of John Connor. Was actually the original John Connor converted into that. Yeah, Cybermen, anyone? More Doctor Who connections? And then he shows up and tells them that he was sent back from what was the alternate version of the original timeline sent back to this one to keep Skynet from rising in 2017, even though from where he came from it was 1997, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It gave me a headache, alright? I did a whole series of videos on how to write speculative fiction, and one of the things that I harp on people about is to make sure you have internal logic and good rules, alright? Time travel stories, as I also mentioned in the video series, is notoriously hard to write. You gotta really plan ahead to know what you're doing, or else you're gonna punch so many plot holes and paradoxes into your story that it falls apart completely, alright? Apparently, whoever wrote the screenplay for this movie wasn't watching those videos or paying attention to anyone else who had said the same thing. Alright? It just, I couldn't handle it after a while, and I had stupid excuses to try to get away with it. It was such a slap in the face for anyone who writes good science fiction, especially good time travel stories. I mentioned Stephen Moffat. He writes some pretty complicated stuff on Doctor Who, but at least it still makes sense, and he plans ahead to make sure all the crazy things he does are still internally consistent. Seriously! Whoever you are when you wrote this screenplay, read good books, alright? Read some screenwriting books on writing time travel, so that maybe next time you won't botch it!
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Which brings me to the second problem that this movie has. It completely disrespects what has come before it. Now, this is what I've heard termed a soft reboot. This is something that has been done several times over the last few years. Most notably with J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, Mortal Kombat 9, and last year with X-Men Days of Future Past. There's just a big, but with that, there's a big difference between the two of them. Not only did they do the time travel stuff a heck of a lot better, they also didn't completely disrespect what had come before it in their respective franchises. It doesn't wipe away those stories that came before it and say that they mean nothing. Alright? There was a level of reverence for what came before it. Alright? They didn't just chuck it all out and say, we want to have our cake and eat it too, so we'll keep some of the stuff that you liked beforehand, but then we're going to throw it all out and act like it didn't happen. Alright, if you're going to do that, you may as well just do a straight up reboot with no connections to the previous continuity. Alright? Maybe I'm being too much of a nitpicky stickler, but this is something that really bugged me. Alright? The best example I can think of with this is with, actually, X-Men Days of Future Past, where the events of the previous movies, even though admittedly some of the previous movies were pretty bad, all of those events led to a future where things got so terrible that Magneto and Professor X resorted to figuring out how to time travel, go back, and make sure that those events never actually happened. Alright? And they do succeed in that, spoiler, but the events of those previous movies were what brought them to the point that they were at, and what had happened in that previous timeline was not completely forgotten. There was at least one character, Wolverine, maybe more, I don't know, who remembered what happened, so it doesn't render all of it meaningless. In this one, none of that matters, alright? They tease you, they mess with you, and then they slap you upside the face, alright? Yeah, I'm not kidding. So here, it starts, I told you about before, you know, there's that scene from the original Terminator, where the Terminator comes around and finds these punks, and it's about to beat them up and take their clothes, and then, so like, oh look, it's like the movie saying, hey look, remember this? Remember this? Yeah, we know you love that part. See, that was really cool, remember? Alright, hey look, here's old Schwarzenegger now. He's going to show up and slap you upside the face and say, hey, guess what? It never happened now. Really? Really? You're going to you're going to wipe away the events of two classic science fiction movies. Alright? One that is a testament to how even a low-budget film can be an amazing piece of work, and the other one being a sequel that is one of those rare sequels that's better than the original, and you're going to throw them all both out the window and act like they don't matter. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Those will always be classics. These will always be classics, and your little attempt at making a reboot is for what I'm hearing, is flopping, and it will be forgotten, even though you really think you're going to get 2 more sequels out of this. Yeah, 2 more! 2 more! My brain explodes thinking about that. Alright? I'm sorry. No matter what you do here, those aren't going anywhere in my mind. These still happened, and you're not wiping that away with your silly little reboot.
I can feel your anger. It gives you focus, makes you stronger.
Which leads me to my third major problem with this movie, and that's that these characters that they're bringing back from the previous films are not nearly as rich as they were in the other ones. I'm sorry, Genisys filmmakers, but you're not James Cameron. Nice try, but you're not James Cameron. You simply don't know how to create characters with as much depth and pathos as he did with those original movies. You know, especially with Sarah Connor. I am really disappointed with your handling of Sarah Connor in this movie. Alright? You just wanted the instant gratification of taking her from, of getting her to T2 mode. Alright? I'm sorry, Lyndall Hamilton handled that much better with James Cameron's scripts, where Sarah Connor starts off as this meek little woman who can't protect herself and has to be saved by Kyle Reese to, toward the end of the first movie, being the one who strikes the killing blow against the Terminator, and then over the course of the 7 years between that movie and, well, maybe it's more like a decade, I don't know, but in the years between that movie and Terminator 2, has toughened herself up and learned military tactics, has gone borderline insane because of the weight of everything that's coming down on her. And then even then goes through another change where she almost kills the man who creates Skynet, but doesn't do it because she realizes that he's not some evil tech tycoon. He's a family man who was really just trying to help people out. Alright? And her romance with Kyle in this, I'm sorry, it was just awkward, and it was weird, and it was boring. Really, it was. Okay, I realized in the original movie it happened super fast and all those sorts of things, but there was still more chemistry there. It still made more sense in that one than it does in this, where it's just, oh, it just doesn't gel. It just doesn't work. Especially since you have the Terminator trying to make this all awkward by saying that she has to mate with Kyle Reese in order to produce John so that there will be a resistance leader later. That just adds to the awkwardness of it. And the sad thing is that the actors in this movie are trying really, really hard. I can tell. They're trying really hard to elicit emotions with their performances and with their characters. The problem is that they got saddled with a subpar script that just wasn't going to work, and they're not good enough to elevate that script. Which is why it's interesting that the only little saving grace that this movie has is Arnold. I know that sounds weird, because Arnold's not necessarily an Oscar-caliber actor, but his Terminator in this is the only thing that brings any sort of sense and entertainment to it. Because he's still funny. Arnold still got it. It's astonishing, but he's still got it. Now, there are points where the Terminator is written in a really gimmicky fashion, but it's at least still entertaining. I will give it that. But he's still not enough to save this pathetic little movie.
Flames on the side of my face.
Oh, and by the way, making John Connor the bad guy? Low blow. I'm sorry. If it was just a Terminator masquerading as John, that could be kind of cool. And you could have played around with that. The characters could be wondering, is this really John? Or is this just a Terminator pretending to be John? You could have played with that, but you didn't do that. You just made John Connor the bad guy. Alright? The focal point and the hero of the entire franchise. The whole reason that the movies exist in the first place, you turned into the villain. Or rather, you made him into a minion of the villain. You made him a lackey for Skynet. This is right up there with when Frank Miller wrote The Dark Knight Strikes Again, and he turned Superman and Shazam and Wonder Woman into Lex Luthor's patsies. That doesn't even make sense. It is an insult. It's stupid. This would be like Christopher Nolan deciding to reboot the Batman movies and suddenly making Batman the bad guy and Alfred the hero or something stupid like that. Alright? It doesn't work. That's a huge insult to what's come before and to the characters that James Cameron created. I don't care what he says. I've heard stories about how he says he actually kind of likes this movie. I swear he's on drugs, which would explain why Avatar was as crazy as it was at points. Regardless, I'm assuming that those are just attempts at publicity stunts or something to try to justify the existence of this film.
Not a great plan.
So, after all of that ranting and raving, my final grade for Terminator Genisys is a D. Yeah, this is the lowest grade I have given to any movie I have reviewed on this show. Honestly, this is probably the lowest grade I have given to any movie that I've seen in a movie theater in a long time, as I've already hinted at. As a fan of the franchise, I found this movie to be a gigantic insult. And this is the sort of stuff that makes me want to start a spin-off show called Nerd Rage, where I review anything stupid that comes out of the nerd and geek culture, because it ticks me off when stuff like this comes out. It's one of those moments when I wish that I could travel back in time and keep this movie from ever happening. Glad I got that off my chest.
Initiating new mission protocols.
Hey, where are you going?
In order to avert your nerd rage, I will now build a time machine to travel back in time and prevent Genisys from being produced.
What? You mean like how Sarah Connor and the Terminator somehow built their own time machine in this movie? You realize how ridiculous that was, right?
You programmed me with all information related to H.G. Wells, Doctor Who, and the Terminator. It should be simple.
Yeah, that sounds like me. Godspeed to you then.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Wow. I actually kind of liked it when he called me baby. Ah, dang it! Oh, I need a girlfriend.